What's up, everyone? I'm James Lynch, and this is Early Look, the show where I take a look at an upcoming notable fight. And on today's edition, we got a good one. It's a lightweight fight between Rafael Fiziev and Justin Gaethje, going to be the co-main event of UFC 286. But before I give you my preview and pick, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Those three things really do help out a lot. If you could do that on this video, that would be awesome. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, so if you've never watched the show before, basically I go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles, and then I give you my pick at the end. Some of the stuff may be relevant, it may not. I just like to look at all angles when it comes to breaking down fights. So, yeah, like I mentioned there, UFC 286, part of the Edwards and Usman 3 card. Going to be taking place at the O2 Arena in London, and this is the co-main event. Should be 5 rounds, but it's only 3 rounds, which is disappointing. I think a fight of this magnitude should be 5 rounds, but hey, not my decision. So, like you can see there, quick tail of the tape. Justin Gaethje, 23-4. Rafael Fiziev, 12-1. 34 years old for Gaethje. 34 years old for Gaethje. 30 years old for Fiziev. 5'11" to 5'8". 70-inch reach to 71.5. You'll see there, Fiziev having a slight reach advantage, while Gaethje has the height advantage, and Fiziev is a couple years younger as well. Let's start with the former title challenger, Justin Gaethje. Let's get to it. 23-4 record, like I mentioned there. He's got 19 knockouts, 1 submission, and 3 decisions. He's 33 years old, like I mentioned there, 5'11", with a 70-inch reach. So he'll have a 3-inch height advantage in this fight. He's the former World Series of Fighting lightweight champion. He's also a former NCAA Division I wrestler. Trains out in Colorado with Trevor Whitman, Elevation Fight Team, that great squad over there. So obviously at one of the best camps in the world. Forgot as well that he was also an interim lightweight champion 1 time. He's got Fight of the Night 6 times. Michael Johnson, Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier, Edson Barbosa, Tony Ferguson, and Michael Chandler. He's got Performance of the Night bonus 4 times with Michael Johnson, James Vick, Donald Cerrone, and Tony Ferguson. He's also got Fight of the Year in 2017 with Michael Johnson, and he's also got Fight of the Year in 2021 with Michael Chandler. So this is a guy, like his nickname says, the highlight, always going to deliver a pretty exciting matchup. Gaethje's fought in a couple different weight classes before. He's had 2 catchweight fights. Just thought I'd mention that. I mean, primarily his career has been at 155, but he's had a catchweight fight of 159 and also a catchweight fight of 165. Gaethje did not make an amateur debut. He went straight to the pros way back in August of 2011, made his UFC debut in July of 2017. That's when he knocked out Michael Johnson. Really good fight there. Gaethje is 6-4 in the UFC. He's got 5 stoppages. Some notable wins for Gaethje include Edson Barbosa, Donald Cerrone, Tony Ferguson, and Michael Chandler. Some notable losses that Gaethje's had include Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier, Khabib Nurmagomedov, and most recently, Charles Oliveira. One thing with Gaethje, fairly active, right? You look at the UFC debut in 2017, he's fighting 2, sometimes 3 times a year in most cases. Pretty active overall, although he does have a bit of a layoff coming into this fight. We'll talk about that in a sec. He hasn't had any close fights. The Michael Chandler fight was the last fight that he's gone the distance. It's one of the rare times he went to a decision. Actually, that's the only time in his UFC career that he has gone the distance. So there you go. But I mean, I don't think anyone watching that felt like Michael Chandler had a sliver of hope of getting the judge's nod on that one. It was clearly all Justin Gaethje in that fight. He's had, so I mentioned there that Gaethje's been pretty active, but since October 2020, you'll see he's only fought twice. Now there was obviously the pandemic and other stuff going on. I know there's some politics going on at the top of the division as well. But yeah, not as active as I'm sure we'd like to see from Gaethje over the last couple years. So looking at some of the layoffs that he's had, going from Khabib Nurmagomedov to Michael Chandler, there was a 378-day layoff, and then going from Charles Oliveira to Fiziev in this fight, there'll be a 315-day layoff. So again, one of the sort of the knocks on Gaethje, maybe not as active as we'd like him to be over the last little bit, but kind of excuse him, since 2020, because again, the pandemic was going on a little bit, but there's also, like I said, some stuff happening as far as opponents and all that. And I think one of the big knocks on Gaethje, and the same goes for Chandler and Dustin Poirier, is that these guys have not fought the up-and-comers. And what I mean by up-and-comers are, Rafael Fiziev, who he's fighting in this fight, Arman Tsarukyan, some of these names that, aren't household, but they are making some serious noise in the weight class. So this is kind of the first fight that we've seen at lightweight where you are sort of seeing that changing of the guard in terms of these fighters not just fighting each other. I mean, we've seen Gaethje fight Poirier. We've seen Poirier fight Chandler. We've seen, this musical chairs. This is finally the first matchup of the UFC finally giving these up-and-coming guys a shot here. So really excited to see this. And again, this is a fight that Fiziev's wanted for quite some time. So really happy to see this fight take place. So that is everything you need to know about Justin Gaethje. Again, not a guy who typically goes the distance in his fights. Okay, let's go to Rafael Fiziev. As you can see there, 29 years old. He's going to be 30 on March 5th. So by the time this fight takes place, Fiziev will be 30. He's 5'8" with a 71.5-inch reach. He's 4 years younger than Gaethje, and he'll have a 1.5-inch reach advantage. Fiziev's got 8 knockouts, 1 submission, and 3 decisions. He is 12-1 overall. He's a BJJ blue belt, and he trains both at Killcliff FC and Tiger Muay Thai, I believe. Just looking at his Instagram, I believe he's still in Thailand right now, if I'm not mistaken. Have to double check that, but that's kind of what, I mean, he doesn't post that much, so I haven't seen him. Looks like he's not in the United States. Fiziev's got fight of the night 2 times against Mark Diakiese and Bobby Green. He's got performance of the night 3 times against Renato Moicano, Brad Riddell, and Rafael Dos Anjos. Dos Anjos being his last fight, and is the image in the profile picture there for Tapology. Rafael Fiziev did not have an amateur debut. He did, however, have a Muay Thai career as early as May of 2010. So, you know, people may be looking, wow, he didn't start MMA till 2015. He's been competing in Muay Thai. And by the way, I'll just mention it here because I've had some people complain about it. I know in the John Jones breakdown, I neglected to mention Cyril Gahn's Muay Thai background. That's something I'm going to be more mindful of going forward, just mentioning that, you know, out of MMA type of stuff, if the records are available, right? Sometimes it's tough to find that stuff. Yeah, and Fiziev actually went 29-4 in Muay Thai, so pretty good record there in his Muay Thai career. Made his UFC debut in July of 2015 here, so you'll see. Sorry, July 2019. Put that wrong there. Made his official MMA debut in July of 2015. Didn't make his UFC debut until April of 2019. So I was right there. Okay, so just give a little bit of context here. So by the time Rafael Fiziev made his MMA debut, like I said, July 2015, Justin Gaethje already had 14 fights. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind there. By the time he made his UFC debut, Gaethje already had 5 UFC fights. So I think that total would have been, 5 UFC fights already. So again, when it comes to experience, Gaethje definitely has that in this fight. Now, Fiziev is 7-1 in the UFC. He's got 3 stoppage wins. That actually might surprise some people. When you think of Fiziev, you think of the power. But if you remember early on in his career, he went to the distance a couple times. Alex White, Mark Diakiese, Bobby Green. Although Bobby Green very tough to finish. But yeah, he's had the same amount of decision wins that he's had as stoppage wins in the UFC, which is interesting. Some notable wins. Moicano was a very good win for him. Bobby Green was a good win as well. Although people, you know, fixate on the last round where I think Green probably took that one. And then Rafael Dos Anjos, that was really his, I'd say a statement win to a certain degree. You know, he answered a few questions there. A lot of people were like, oh, his cardio's not very good. Well, he went 5 rounds with RDA and finished him in the 5th. I'd say his cardio is pretty good. He also beat a former title challenger, and he also finished Rafael Dos Anjos, which is very tough to do. I know it took him until the 5th round, but that's still a very nice win, and that's why he's getting this fight with Gaethje. I mean, had he gone to the decision, a decision with Rafael Dos Anjos, or maybe it was a closer fight, maybe he doesn't get this matchup, but I think the fact that he knocked out RDA definitely looks good on his resume. Has the 1 loss to Mustafayev. Kind of a weird fight. I filed this in the Michael Johnson over Dustin Poirier category, and the you know, like the Pat Healy over Jim Miller category. Like, just one of those weird fights that I think if they rematched, I think Fiziev would probably win that. Nothing against Mustafayev, but he just got caught. It happens. And one other kind of interesting thing here about Fiziev is that he actually started his career at 185, his first 2 fights, which is kind of noteworthy. Let me just double check that, actually. Wrote that on my notes, but now I'm kind of second guessing myself here. No, he didn't. Never mind. Ignore that part. I must have had that from my old notes. So we'll just leave that alone, because I was going to say going from being at 85 to 155 is a bit of a jump there, so that's crazy. Now, Fiziev has had a few layoffs in his career, kind of like Gaethje. Not as long as Gaethje, though. Going from Moicano to Bobby Green, there's a 238-day layoff. And then going from Rafael Dos Anjos to Gaethje in this fight, there's a 252-day layoff. Some of that was visa issues, like no injuries or anything, you know, nothing major anyways, that has kept him out for most of those things. If you look here, you know, bout rescheduled with the Dos Anjos fight, and then he tested positive for COVID. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. He has had 2 injuries that were sort of, well, I don't know if you'd classify this as an injury. So I completely forgot about this. I went back when I was kind of looking up sort of some stats for this fight. Do you guys remember he's supposed to be on Contender Series? I don't remember that at all. That was back in 2018. He's supposed to fight Joey Gomez. Poor Joey Gomez dodged a bullet there for sure. But yeah, that's kind of weird that the UFC, I guess it makes sense because you'd only had a couple pro fights of him being on Contender Series. But yeah, you imagine if he was on that show, that would have been another Contender Series winner. I'm pretty sure. Nothing against Joey Gomez. I think he would have won that. But anyways, he had to withdraw from that fight, and then he ended up fighting for Titan FC. I also don't remember this either, so it's kind of interesting. And then what else do we have? He did have one undisclosed injury against Alex Da Silva Not sure what that was, but that was back in 2019. But overall, pretty healthy, pretty active fighter overall. Now, the only fight that he's had, I mentioned the three decisions that he's had there. The only decision that some people felt like was closer than it needed to be was the Bobby Green fight. That was UFC 265, the Lewis versus Gong card back in August of 2021. I did notice 16 media members scored the fight for Fiziev, 1 scoring it a draw, and 3 scoring it for Bobby Green, which is interesting. I remember watching that thinking Fiziev won, but interesting that some people felt like Bobby Green did enough. And again, you can find all that on MMAdecisions.com. Really good website. It's where the media can post their scorecards, and you can always sort of get a sense of... looks like it's not loading right now, but you kind of get the idea. MMAdecisions.com. It's where all the medias post their scorecards. There we go. Now it's come up. So you can kind of have a look at all the scorecards that media members have submitted there, which is great. Now, we do not have odds for this fight yet. Again, I mean, we should soon. Today, I'm recording this. It's March 17th, so we're coming up to a month for fight time here. But just looking on Tapology here, as far as how people are picking, 75% of people on Tapology picking Fiziev, 25% picking Gaethje. That surprises me a bit. I'll give you my pick here in a second, but I didn't expect it to be that wide as far as the line. If I had to guess the line, I would say Fiziev's going to be the favorite. I just wouldn't put him that high. Like, I would put him at like a minus 150 to minus 200, only because like he's got, I guess, one good win maybe, right? Like maybe the Dos Anjos fight, but even that's weird because how old's Dos Anjos now? He's getting up there in age, right? Dos Anjos is 38. So, it was a good win, but if you look at, some of the I get Moicano's a ranked opponent. That's not a bad one either. Bobby Green, impressive as well. But, you look at Gaethje and some of the people that he's fought and who he's beat, although saying that as well, you kind of nitpick at his record. Vic not in the UFC, Barbosa not in the weight class, Cerrone retired, Ferguson on the way to retirement, and then Chandler. But Chandler's a good win. Because again, Chandler's also a title challenger as well. So, like I mentioned there, Gaethje's got the experience. Gaethje's got the level of opposition in his back pocket. He's got the better resume than Fiziev. But there's a couple of reasons why I don't think he wins this fight. First off, he's taken a ton of damage. Back when he fought in World Series of Fighting, he was way more reckless. Go back and look at those fights he had with Luis Palomino. People talk about how legendary they were, but he took a ton of damage in those fights. While he did win them, he also got hit a lot. And that's one area of concern for Gaethje, is that at some point the chin's got to give out. It has given out a few times. Like you saw, Poirier and Alvarez both beat him by finish. So it can happen, but he can also knock you out as well. Now with Fiziev, he's taken a bit of damage, but I wouldn't say anywhere close to the extent that Gaethje has. He has also been finished before, as we saw in the Mustafayev fight, but he's only been knocked out one time. Gaethje's been knocked out, I guess, twice now. He was choked out by Oliveira. So that's kind of something interesting to sort of keep in mind. The other thing is the age. He's 34. We're kind of entering that area with Gaethje where he's getting a little bit older, and is there going to be a decline there? And also you got to think the motivation as well too. Like, Gaethje's always going to go out there and perform and put on a good performance. I'm not saying there's any motivation that way, but as far as like getting a title shot, like he's had 2 opportunities now at winning a title, and he's failed in both accounts. Granted, they're 2 really good guys, and Khabib Nurmagomedov and Charles Oliveira. But you got to wonder too, like, this is a big fight for him. There's a lot of pressure on here. If Fiziev loses this fight, I think he's young enough where if this is a setback, I think he can rebound and still, go on the path to a title. With Gaethje at his age and the amount of losses he's had, I don't know if that's the same thing. So there's kind of that pressure standpoint as well. The other key thing here, it's at the O2 Arena, so it'll be a bigger cage. Both these guys have knockout power, so I think that kind of cancels each other out. And then the other thing as well is just, again, looking at the fact that it's only 3 rounds. This should be a 5-round fight. If there are any questions about Fiziev's cardio, well, I don't think that matters here. It's only a 3-round fight. So with all that said, and I hate to be a little bit boring here, but I'm going Fiziev by decision. And here's sort of my reasoning for that. If you look at the losses for Gaethje, the Alvarez loss was at the very end of the 3rd round, and that was way back in 2017. Gaethje has clearly become more of a technical, patient fighter than he was back in the Alvarez days, where he was very wild. The Poirier fight was a 4th round finish. Kind of what I'm getting at here. He's a tough guy to knock out, and that's really, I think, the path to victory here for Fiziev is to try and knock him out if he was to get a finish. I don't think he would submit Justin Gaethje, although there's some questions about Gaethje's ground game as well. But I mean, his submission loss was against Oliveira and Khabib as well, right? So it's like, 2 really good ground guys. It's really tough to say if he has a bad ground game or maybe he's just fighting guys with really, really good ground game. It's kind of what we're looking at here. Now with Fiziev, again, I think there's still that unproven aspect, but I think he's young enough, and I kind of put him in the same category as Arman, where every fight we see some improvements. So that's kind of what I'm banking on here. I think Fiziev's going to continue to improve. I think, you know, the fact that he's younger, the fact that he hasn't taken as much damage, I think he's going to win the striking battles. Gaethje could use his wrestling here, and that's where things get interesting, but you got to imagine Fiziev's wrestling's got to be decent as well, as far as takedown defense and all that stuff, considering where he's trained for the last couple of years at Killcliff, right? You've got a lot of good wrestlers there. So I think Fiziev is definitely getting a step up here in Gaethje. I think Gaethje is by far the best opponent he's fought. But I don't know. I'm a believer in Fiziev, and you know, there's some school of thought, just as we're coming off the weekend of Islam and Volkanovski, there's a school of thought that maybe Fiziev's the guy to be the kryptonite for Islam. Maybe, we'll see. I just think it's very intriguing that this guy is still very young. Like I said, hasn't taken a ton of damage, and he's got some really good striking. And again, if you're training at Tiger Muay Thai, I mean, we're talking one of the best striking gyms in the world. His striking's got to be on point. He's got the Muay Thai background as well. I just think it's a case of a guy who's young and up and coming, taking on a guy who's had his chance at glory, and he's slowly, I mean, I don't know, maybe this is the fight where he's on the decline, but either way, I can't pick Gaethje here. There's nothing about his last couple fights. I know he got the win over Chandler. There's nothing about his last couple fights that makes me think that he's getting better. I think what you see is what you get with Gaethje, and I'd rather take my chances on someone like Fiziev, who to me has, you know, shown improvements every fight. So my official pick is going to be Rafael Fiziev by decision. You might get some good odds there. I think people are expecting a knockout and it not going the distance, but I'm realistic here. Like I said, Gaethje typically finished later, except when he's getting submitted. With Fiziev, I suppose he could get finished as well, but I think Fiziev knows. I mean, Fiziev wanted this fight. He called it out. I think he's going to be very tactical in this fight and not get too crazy, knowing what's on the line here. Again, a win could put him, I mean, I still think a win here would probably mean another win as well, and then a title shot, but there's a lot on the line here for Fiziev too. So really interested by that, but my official pick is going to be Rafael Fiziev by decision. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who are you picking and why? Let's have a fun debate about this. Let's not get insults. Let's not, you know, be trolly, all that stuff, right? We can talk about fights in a good manner, can we not? I have faith in all of you in the YouTube comments. I know you guys can do it. Also, let me know in the comments if there's any other fights you want me to preview. They don't have to be main events. I really do like getting your suggestions. If there's a really interesting fight you think I should be covering, more than happy to do that. So just let me know in the comments on that. I try and do the show every week. And again, if there are any mistakes made today, I try my best. I usually just, you know, kind of look up as much research as I can. Let me know in the comments. Just be cool about it. You know, don't be one of these like, well, actually, you forgot about, you know, like those types of people who get like, you know, they're those, I call them the well, actually people, you know, so those types. Anyways, yeah, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. And while you're there, hit that like button. The like button is really important. If you could just hit that, it really does help out the algorithm, helps with the views on this channel. It would really mean a lot to me. And also hit that notification bell. Why? Because I'm posting content on this channel every single day. My name is James Lynch. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.